Tonight, ready to rumble. Can Republicans keep the Trump train on the rails for 90 minutes? Ousted. Voters booed anti-Israel Congressman Jamal Bowman. What the White House and other squad members need to learn from the thumping. Plus, New York justice.
Raise your hands if you're a Zionist!
Raise your hands if you're a Zionist!
This is your chance to get out!
The Hamas supporter who threatened Jews in New York turns himself in while he's already out of jail. And inside the insanity, he documents street takeovers like these. Tonight, he'll tell us why they can't be stopped. 7 o'clock, live pictures of Atlanta, Georgia. A beautiful June evening there. 24 hours from now, both former President Trump and President Biden will be on the ground for the first presidential debate, the earliest presidential debate we have ever seen. That we welcome you to the Farrah Show on television. And first tonight, perhaps the biggest question in terms of tomorrow before the debate starts. Which Donald Trump are we going to get? Because there's a lot of them. New reporting from NBC News says President Biden's advisors are training Biden basically to provoke Trump. Quote, if Trump is more sedate than incensed, the goal for Biden will be to elicit what his aides see as the true Trump. From NBC, that's according to 3 people familiar with the president's debate prep. And let's be fair about this. When attacked, Donald Trump is unable, truly unable, to contain himself. The former president is known for tough rhetoric. He's known, as he would always say, for being a counterpuncher. But there's different Donald Trumps. In fact, in all of his debates, dating back to 2016, we've gone back and looked at every one. Each time, a different Donald Trump shows up.
And he referred to my hands. If they're small, something else must be small. I guarantee you there's no problem. I guarantee it.
Bill Clinton was abusive to women. Hillary Clinton attacked those same women and attacked them viciously. 4 of them here tonight.
It's just awfully good that someone with the temperament of Donald Trump is not in charge of the law in our country.
Yeah, because you'd be in jail.
Secretary Clinton.
I'm willing to do anything. I want to see peace.
Then do it, sir.
Say it. Do it. Say it. Do you want to call him? What do you want to call him? Give me a name. Give me a
white
name.
Supremacists and
white like me to condemn?
White supremacists and right
Proud Boys. Stand back and stand by.
House Speaker Mike Johnson is with us, Republican from Louisiana. Good to see you, sir. Welcome to Seth. Thank you. Let's look to Thursday night, tomorrow night. What is a win for Donald Trump?
A win is to go out, I think, and share his vision with the country. We're excited about that. I spent time with him this last week, and he's in a good place.
Give him any advice?
We all did, you know. I spent a lot of time with him. He's very engaging. He's in a great place. He's in a great mood because he's feeling the energy around the country, and we all are. Last week alone, Leland, I did events in 6 different states, nonstop campaign travels around the country, and it doesn't matter whether they're in a blue state or a swing district or a red state, it's all the same. People are fed up with the Biden administration and what they've done to the country, and they want change, and they're excited about President Trump getting another term. All
right. There's going to be, I think, you've said there's going to be some unfair questions on Thursday night during the debate. There's also going to be, I think, some fair questions. One of them, George Stephanopoulos laid out what he'd like to see as the first question. Take a listen.
What do you think is the most important question that needs to be answered from both candidates?
Who won the last election?
Yeah.
Very simple.
How would you advise Donald Trump to answer that?
Well, you know President Trump's answer. He doesn't think it was fair. He thinks there was a record number of anomalies and probably fraud. And, you know, some of those are objective truths. I mean, obviously, the COVID year election. But he shouldn't say that. No, he shouldn't. I mean, what he should say is let's talk about the future and not the past. And that's what we all do. We can't relitigate what happened in 2020. But what happens and what matters is what happens in the next 4 years. We've got to fix every metric of public policy. They've made a disaster of all of it. And I said, as we travel around the country, we hear from people everywhere. They're fed up about the open border, the catastrophe that it is. They're fed up about the weakness that we're projecting.
So you want him to focus on that?
He's got all sorts of policies that he can talk about. And the interesting thing is here, these are two men who have actually been president, right? So disregard the rhetoric. Look at the records between these two men. We were all doing better under President Trump than we are President Biden. Every single American, and anybody who looks at it objectively has to come to that conclusion.
And the polling number shows that, right? That there is this large gap between the difference of people who say they were better off during Trump than Biden, and yet the polls nationally in terms of the head-to-head is tied. So there's a group of people who still have questions about Donald Trump. One thing that's going to come up certainly is the Supreme Court. Here's Nancy Pelosi with Anderson Cooper last night.
I mean, do you have confidence in the Supreme Court?
No, I think they've gone rogue. It's most unfortunate. But it's unfortunate further to see what the other justice, what happened to the Chief Justice? Did he go weak or did he go rogue?
You have any idea what she means by go rogue?
I don't. Look, we have 5 justices there, a conservative majority at least, who are doing the right thing. I think they're calling balls and strikes, as you would want justices to do. And Democrats don't like the outcome of some of these cases. But we put textualists and originalists on the court, and that's what you're going to get. I think they're doing a fine job.
All right. Some good news, I think, for you, in that is Jamal Bowman has lost his reelection bid in a primary. The fact that Democrats are now pushing out, and really resoundingly so, the most extreme parts and the anti-Israel parts of their party, in a weird way, is that bad for Republicans?
Well, no. I mean, we're glad to see members of the squad go down. It's a toxin to the system. It really is. And I think they tried to push that pendulum so far to the left that it's now beginning to swing back. I believe we're still a center-right country, and I think this election result is going to show that. And look, the fact that they've espoused all this anti-Semitic, these views, and loudly and with lots of profanity, by the way, in Jamal Bowman's case, it really resonates with the people. I was in New York all weekend campaigning with our candidates. That's a great place for us now. Republicans are going to perform very well in New York because the left went too far to the left, and they're looking for answers to all these great challenges facing the country, and our candidates are providing them.
Part of the challenge of getting these persuadable voters who are fed up with Joe Biden, but may not be okay with Donald Trump, perhaps they're okay with his policy, but not exactly okay with his personality, is going to be the pick of the vice president. Doug Burgum, J.D. Vance, Marco Rubio. Who do you think best helps Donald Trump get the persuadable center?
I don't know if I could pick a horse. I like all 3 of these gentlemen. They're all friends. They're all super talented. The good news about the Republican side is we have a deep bench. Unlike the Democrats, we have lots to choose from and a embarrassment of riches. I think any of those guys are bringing a lot to the ticket. And some of the other names that have been mentioned that are on the short list.
What about Nikki Haley?
Look, I'm a fan of Nikki Haley, but I don't think that she and Trump make a good team right now, according to him. That's all that matters.
Okay.
But she's very talented. I have a lot of respect for her.
So you're not going to throw out a name?
I'm not going to handicap that. I got enough to say grace over myself.
You've also got a little bit of problems in your own caucus. Paulina Luna says she's going to force a vote on having the House Sergeant-at-Arms arrest the Attorney General. You going to allow that to get to the floor?
I've been talking with her about that. She has a lot of frustration, as I do, about Merrick Garland as the Attorney General, who's just defying congressional subpoenas. Now, we are going to court. The House Judiciary Committee is going to sue to enforce that subpoena, and I'm helping with that. I think we have to do that. Extreme times call for extreme measures, and the Attorney General has effectively ignored the will of Congress. We need the audio tape to be able to confirm what is on the written transcript of Joe Biden's lengthy interview with the special counsel. That is not an outrageous request. It's something we have to do pursuant to our constitutional responsibility. I think we'll get it at the end of the day.
That was an answer to a question, just not the question I asked. Should Merrick Garland, should the House Sergeant-at-Arms go arrest Merrick Garland?
I don't even know if there is an actual mechanism to do it, although it's technically allowed in the law. It hasn't been done for, I think, over 100 years for a reason. So we're talking through what all that looks like.
Okay.
Look, I think as a former litigator and one who believes in the system that we can use it to our benefit, use it in accordance with what the Constitution anticipates. I think we should. We're going to be very aggressive, and we're going to make the Attorney General turn over this information one way or the other.
You think about Republicans right now on many levels and at many times violating Reagan's 11th commandment. The fact that we've seen the primaries go the way they have, I'm thinking, for example, about Nancy Mace's victory, is the McCarthy revenge tour over?
Look, I don't know about any of that. All I know is I believe in the 11th commandment. I talk to all my colleagues about it all the time. We shouldn't speak evil of other Republicans. And for that matter, we got to be happy warriors. That's why Reagan was a great model for us, I still think that's
You think Trump can be a happy warrior?
I think he is now. I think you're going to see that in the debate. I think he's going to be in a great mood, and he's going to, in a very, I think, affable way, put forward a vision that I think will resonate with the people.
First time you've been on the program as Speaker of the House. Has it set in yet? Are you over all the novelty aspects of it?
I wish I had time to sit and process it, really, honestly. I mean, it's a 24-hour-a-day job, no kidding. And
most fun thing that's happened since you become Speaker?
The most fun thing is being able to go around the country and meet with the American people. I mean, as Speaker of the House, you're supposed to be everywhere, and so we go everywhere. And that has been so rewarding to me because it reminds me what an extraordinary nation we have. The greatest in the world, the greatest in the history of the world, and we got to preserve it. And I'm seeing the energy among the people that they're anxious to get engaged and do that, and that is so encouraging to me.
Mr. Speaker, come back.
Great to see you.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks so much.
Democratic voters in New York take out one of their own for not supporting Israel. How this gives President Biden a huge opportunity for tomorrow night. Will he take it? And they're called sideshows, street takeovers, and they are coming to your town. Priority there. They often kill people. What police could do to stop them, but won't do. So ahead of the debate, new Decision Desk HQ data models give Donald Trump a 6 in 10 chance of winning. So they put together all the polls and fundraising and past elections into their model. They do their math thing, and they get 6 in 10. As of now, they also give Republicans an 81% chance of controlling the Senate, 65% chance of the House. So things look good for Republicans right now. Generally speaking, observers agree you'd rather be Donald Trump going into the debate. But, and it is a big but, Democrats got a huge opportunity last night. Voters in New York ousted Democrat and squad member Jabal Bowman in a primary election. His anti-Israel views were too much for Democrats. New polling shows fellow squad member and anti-Israel crusader Cori Bush also in big trouble. The pro-Israel-backed challenger Wesley Bell in St. Louis, my hometown, is now up 1 point on Bush. Until now, the White House and President Biden have been handcuffed, or at least they appear to have been handcuffed, from criticizing the left of their own party. But now the far left is losing to the center. Representative Glenn Ivey joins us now, Democratic congressman from Maryland, member of the House Judiciary Committee. Welcome back, sir. We're glad to have you.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you very much. Do you agree with my assessment that President Biden comes in as the underdog? And if so, and if not, what does a win look like?
Well, I think everybody's trying to lower expectations, so I'm sure the Biden team would say, yes, they're coming in as underdogs. I think that the point, though, is he's in a perfect position to do well with this. And the other piece about Donald Trump being at the other podium is he's so erratic and unpredictable. Who knows what could happen there? So, but I think Biden's been doing really well with respect to the State of the Union address. The first two debates from the last go round when he won the presidency, just to be clear on that one. I think
you get no argument with me on that. I lost a job over making that point, so you don't get any argument with me. George Will made a point, speaking of the Trump presidency.
Yeah.
And George Will, I think we all know, is no fan of Donald Trump. 55% of Americans now say that Trump's presidency was a success. 55%. Joe Biden's approval number right now is at the high 30s, low 40s. How does this constant message from Team Biden that Trump is terrible a winning strategy?
Well, I think there's multiple sets of people that I think they have to campaign and try and reach out to. One is the double haters. So the double haters who hate Donald Trump, telling them that maybe he wasn't so bad, I don't think is necessarily a winning strategy. And by the way, I think those are going to be probably the biggest chunk of the swing voters in this election. I think what they're going to want to hear is what's the vision going forward. And, with respect to the economy, with respect to trying to maintain a government that's kind of rational and stable and moving in the right direction. Because what a lot of people didn't like about the Trump presidency was the roller coaster ride that it was and a lot of the crazy things that he did and said in the White House. And I think he's said things to reinforce that, I'll be a dictator on day one and I'm going to ban.
We can go back and forth.
All of that stuff, we could do a whole show on. But I think at the end of the day, what Biden's done with respect to NATO and reestablishing a lot of the foreign policy relationships that we had, I think have been good too. Okay. And the economy, you've got the macro piece that's obviously doing well. The key for him is going to be to make sure that
I feel your pain, right? To show some empathy there.
Yeah.
And being able to do that requires a deftness on your feet and ability to move. I think we can all agree one of the reasons that President Biden has lost support, especially among the African American community, down now to 76% from what he significantly lower than what he got in the 2020 election, is because of the economy and because of how his ability to articulate he feels people's pain. Charlemagne the God, very popular, perhaps the most popular, I think we could agree, African-American radio host.
I'll take your word for it.
Okay, well, sounds good. I don't listen either, but I've heard it. I've heard it's an interesting pod, as they say, as the kids say. Here he is talking about how high the stakes are for tomorrow night. Take a listen.
All right.
But if he does flop so hard that it's even the media can't deny it, should they pull him?
I would say yes. I think that you would probably have no choice, but to pull him if you really truly care about, democracy.
He's saying what? Pull Biden?
He said that if Biden, in their words, flops in a way, has a senior moment, that there needs to be a willingness among Democrats to have a conversation about if Joe Biden can't beat Donald Trump, finding somebody who can.
Well, I think it's clear that Joe Biden can beat Donald Trump because he already has. And I think it'd be kind of ridiculous to try and flip-flop at this moment where we are in the campaign. Got some good people on the bench and everything, but to try and put together a presidential campaign in 5 or 6 months, I think doesn't make a lot of sense.
You're going to the dance with the girl you brought. You're dancing with the girl you brought.
Yeah, and he's had a good presidency. He's done a good job in a lot of ways. So I think he's the best in best position to beat Donald Trump right now, and I think he's really well positioned to get it done.
Well, you make a point. He's the only one who's done it before. Good to see you, sir.
Thank you
very much. We appreciate it. Good to have you,
pleasure.
as always. Well, that one election in New York last night changed things. Changed a lot of things, but not everything. Shortly after turning himself in, the Hamas supporter who threatened Jews on a train in Manhattan walked out of jail, protected by his friends and supporters. He was charged with attempted coercion, that's it, whatever that means, and released.
Repeat after me.
Repeat after me.
Raise your hands if you're a Zionist.
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 This is your chance to get out.
This is your chance to get out.
Okay, no Zionists, we're good.
NYPD detectives spent weeks trying to track him down. He got less than a slap on the wrist. The FBI didn't bring hate crime charges. No SWAT team showed up at his door. Maybe he'll be like the rioters at Columbia. Alvin Bragg, the prosecutor in New York, dropped charges against them. Of course, there were no hate crime arrests for groups of pro-Hamas folks who blocked a synagogue in Los Angeles and beat up Jews. And we could talk all day, all night, about the hypocrisy of the left, with appeasing every microaggression only to turn a blind eye to the flagrant attack on Jews. And here's the problem. Letting Anas Saleh, that's the guy's name, off with a desk appearance ticket, a traffic ticket in New York, says the behavior is essentially okay. And then people who hate Jews will do more and more until someone kills a Jew. And then what? Are we to expect then, finally, somebody will care? CNN stands to lose a lot tomorrow night, could also save their network. The stakes are that high. What CNN executives are most scared of about tomorrow night, and these two when we come back.
They offered me this debate, and they thought I wouldn't take it because it's on CNN. It's fake Tapper. Does anyone know fake Tapper?
Every preview of the debate you have seen up until now comes from the positions of the candidates. What should Biden do? What should Trump do? On and on and on. For example, here is legendary Washington super lawyer Bob Barnett on his many debate prep sessions.
As an advisor in 10 cycles since 1976, the greatest reward was when my candidate came off the stage and said there was no question that we hadn't practiced.
That we hadn't prepped, that we knew everything.
Absolutely.
CNN moderators Jake Tapper and Dana Bash are tasked with figuring out the questions that Biden and Trump don't expect, like this one from the Fox Republican primary debate in 2016.
Is you speak your mind and you don't use a politician's filter. However, that is not without its downsides, in particular when it comes to women. You've called women you don't like fat pigs, dogs, slobs, and disgusting animals. Your Twitter account...
Only Rosie O'Donnell.
Did that give you guys PTSD, that moment?
Yeah, it's too soon.
Two men who remember that moment very well. They were in the control room at Fox News. Chris Steyerwalt, NewsNation political editor, host of The Hill on Sunday, and Bill Salmon, former Fox News managing editor and vice president. Gentlemen, good to see both of you. Thank you. That moment has been relitigated, so we will not. But I think if we look forward, would you advise Tapper and Bash tomorrow night to be that provocative?
I think I would advise them to be that aggressive. And yeah, sure, there's nothing wrong with being provocative within the confines of being, adequately respectful of the office of the presidency and the former president. You have to have a certain decorum about you. But yeah, I believe that presidential debates are a unique journalistic undertaking that require very, very challenging questions. Not disrespectful questions, but tough questions. As Chris, I'll steal a line from Chris, you're auditioning for George Washington's job here, okay? You need to be put through your paces. That's the whole purpose of this debate.
How do you come up with these questions?
He comes up with this stuff. But no, you have to go in there and say, and that's what Chris and I did for many of these
What's
debates.
the process look like?
You sit in a conference room, we call them murder boards, and you prepare and you come up with, you spitball questions, and then you sharpen them and you refine them. And, you have to have a very tough skin because somebody might say, that's a pretty weak question, but let's make it stronger. And if you go in with that kind of an attitude, you can come up with some killer questions that actually will hopefully get the candidates somewhat off of their talking points. That's the goal. Get them at least partially off their talking points. They might say something interesting or newsworthy or helpful to voters.
Chris, what is the difference, though? And I think you said tough, which I think is a great word. What's the difference between tough and gotcha?
Well, when you're crafting a question for a debate, when you do an interview, you're able to use your body language, you're able to interrupt, you're able to follow up, and you can say, no, I hear what you're saying, I hear what you're saying, but I want to redirect you. These have to be fully contained, self-contained. It's a grenade that you are lobbing up at the stage, and it has to have all the parts in it so that when it goes up there, so you have to think through, okay, what's he probably going to say? What does he want to say here?
What's he said in the past?
What's he said in the past? What does he want to say? So sometimes you'll prefigure what the candidate has said. You've said in the past that you think that zebras are black with white stripes, but on the campaign trail Wednesday, you said that they were white with black stripes. Clarify that for us. So you have to build a self-contained thing. And the other thing I would say to echo my former boss's point is tough, and don't start soft and get tough. Be tough. Come out and ask them hard questions. Don't wait and don't mollycoddle and pussyfoot around and then get up there and finally say, well, now we're going to do this. You come out and you throw heat. You do it tough right from the beginning and make it clear that this is serious business.
What Chris said about the preamble to the question, where you stipulate what you expect them to say so that they don't hopefully answer that anyway. In other words, you showed that Megyn Kelly one where she started out that question by saying, Mr. Trump, one of the things people love about you is that you speak your mind. And that was a great opener because it kind of felt like a compliment, maybe gets the candidate's guard down a little bit. But really, it was setting him up for, now we're going to tell people what was in your mind and what you said about women and so on and so forth. But it also hopefully discourages the candidate from using that as his answer. In other words,
use that as the excuse.
At the end of the question, saying, well, I speak my mind. So once you can sort of stipulate, we know what your talking point's going to be, but let's try to get real here. So it doesn't always work, but it can help.
And reasonable people can agree that the moderator shouldn't probably be the biggest story of the night. That's the whole idea. When Bernard Shaw moderated the debate with Michael Dukakis, he became a little bit of the story because of this question. Take a listen.
Governor, if Kitty Dukakis were raped and murdered, would you favor an irrevocable death penalty for the killer?
No, I don't, Bernard, and I think you know that I've opposed the death penalty during all of my life.
So, even as you heard it, you kind of grimaced there. Interestingly enough, Dukakis had practiced the answer for that, we found out, and just didn't emote in the right way. But this is the first time that a presidential debate is put on not by the Commission on Presidential Debates, but by a single network. Former vice president of a network. What are CNN executives most worried about going into tomorrow night?
Well, you talked about not becoming the story, and no good journalist wants to become the story. So they're going to have conflicting impulses. On
many bad journalists want to become the story.
Many bad journalists do want to become the story. But on the one hand, I think the moderators are going to think, well, look, if he, and we prepared for this, and whenever we did debate prep, we talked about what if the candidate attacks the moderator? How do you respond? And, generally speaking, when there's some exceptions, but generally speaking, the best advice is to say as little as possible. If you can, ignore it. If you can say something minimal and move on, but don't get drawn into a back and forth with the candidate. Having said all of that, there will also be another impulse on the part of these moderators, which is we are going to need to fact-check Trump in real time. Remember the Caitlin Collins town hall with Trump, which was the last big encounter they had with Trump last year. I thought she did a great job, and she did a lot of fact-checking of Trump, but it wasn't enough to satisfy the critics. So that will be on their minds. We got to fact-check him. We got to fact-check him. But then, what about Candy Crowley? Remember CNN? She fact-checked Mitt Romney in real time.
As a matter of fact, we have that. And we have that clip. But yeah, I don't think we have time for it. But I guess, Chris, that's the point, though. When you're dealing with Donald Trump, there's never going to be enough fact-checking for the left, and there's always going to be too much for the right, correct?
Right. When you are damned if you do or damned if you don't, you might as well do what you think is right. And one of the things that I have loved about working with Bill on debates over the years is that the only mandate was to do a good job and to do the right thing. And since when you know that you can't please anybody, you might as well please yourself and the God who made you and go try to do the right thing.
Amen.
Fellas, one of the best segments we've ever had on the program. Thank you very much.
At least in the last 10 minutes.
Good to see you. Thank you both. Where is Melania? Will Melania Trump be in Atlanta tomorrow night to support her husband? You know, that for that famous hug at the end of the debate. And what role will she take if she becomes First Lady? Is that even a fair question when we come back?
Mrs. Trump, are you going to return to the campaign trail with your husband? Stay tuned. Stay tuned.
Be with him, or if she will give a keynote at the RNC convention in a few weeks. The most mysterious First Lady of modern times is now the constant target of attacks. Axios reports Melania Trump might not return to D.C. for a second term. Mae Malman is here, director at the Independent Women's Law Center, vice president of Restoring Integrity and Trust in Elections. Look, Melania Trump sort of leans into the mysterious thing, right?
I don't know if she leans into it, but she is a private person. She was a private person before the presidency. She was a private person in the first term, and she's going to be a private person during Trump's second term.
All right. So what do you make of the fascination of her?
Because she's beautiful, and people like to follow beautiful people. Paris Hilton's on the Hill today. So, yeah, I think because we don't know everything about her life, people just want to know more. And I think also there's the same fascination with Trump, right? Like, let's get inside of his head. So here's his wife. I want to get inside her head. I think it really all has to do with sort of fascination with beauty and fascination with Trump.
All right, so here was Martin Short on Melania last night.
She still might come to D.C. for state dinners and official events. Yes, that's when she really comes alive. I actually have a little empathy for Melania. I mean, she entered into this marriage, she had a certain expectation. And that expectation was that the average life expectancy for an American male is 76.3 years old.
You cracked a smile.
Well, founding year then Jimmy Kimmel, so that's a pretty low bar. I guess I don't understand the criticism. So one, she's not smiling all the time. Do you want to sort of clown First Lady? But nobody likes First Ladies who are too public either, right? If you are Hillary Clinton, if you're Michelle Obama and you're trying to change policy, people don't like this. So there's been this sort of modern expectation, I think, on First Ladies that they have to both do a lot, but then if they do a lot, then they shouldn't be doing a lot.
So the criticism, the fascination, the critiques, whatever you want to call it, is it more about sort of the First Lady period and women sort of held to an impossible standard, or is it about politics?
So I think that people on the opposite side of the aisle are always going to hate, people who they see as politically not for them. But I think what's interesting about Melania is nobody actually knows what her politics are, her policies. And that's what you should have in a First Lady, because nobody elected the First Lady. So in that sense, she's ideal. She likes kids. She gives speeches saying, I want foster kids to do better. I mean, if anyone actually paid attention to what her policies were, she'd be the most popular First Lady.
Well, look at the headlines. Inside Melania Trump's complicated White House life, Melania Trump reportedly still deciding how much effort she wants to expend helping her husband get reelected. Trump makes noise about 2024. Melania Trump tries to stay out of the public eye. The list goes on and on. The flip side is, if she did more about the things that she was interested in, then maybe people would be able to cover them.
Yeah, so like I said, nobody elects the First Lady. There's not, this is not a mandate that she has in order to provide more resources to foster kids. This is something that she does purely because it's something she's interested in theory, that she could do even as a private citizen, which currently she is a private citizen and she is doing.
You think she's going to be there tomorrow night?
I do. So, I mean, she comes to the big events, right? When Trump went to go cast his vote, there she was.
Didn't go to the trial with him.
She did not go to the trial with him, and I would not have gone to the trial with him.
An honest answer. Good to see you, ma'am. Thank you. It's not even the middle of summer, and police say there is literally nothing they can do to stop the increasing number of street takeovers. Tickets don't work, impounding the cars don't work. Often police at these events are outnumbered 20-1. Video shows police retreating from the events. Guess this is dash cam video from one. Until sometimes bystanders die, like at this event on April 19th.
Lou, hi. Detectives announced this morning up to $25,000 is being offered as a reward in this case. They say an illegal street takeover over the weekend turned into a felony hit and run. And they're trying to identify one woman in particular because they don't know if she's dead or alive.
Wow. Documentary filmmaker and creator of Sideways.com, Yapazua Zazaboy is with us. It's good to see you. Thank you. Are these things as dangerous when you are there as they look on the video?
Well, the danger is a perspective. What was dangerous to me when I was 18, it might not have looked, it might look more dangerous now than it did to me at 18 is what I'm trying to say. So when you're out there, there's a different type of adrenaline that kicks in when you're at that age range, where it is the most exciting thing that you can ever think of in your life, to be out there. And that's what police and that's what policymakers are competing with.
Yeah, it looks exciting and wild and like this crazy party. And we just see some of the results. Your video's absolutely wild. When you say that's what they're competing with, I mean, at some point, though, they're also competing with people who just want to be able to get home or get across the Golden Gate Bridge. And at some point, don't we live in a country of laws, and this doesn't really fit into that?
No, this doesn't fit into, it's not safe for any of this type of activity to be going on in neighborhoods or on city streets. This is something that we've discussed in length over here in Oakland, California. This is not a new issue. This is something that that folks have been essentially attacking with the same tools for the last 25 years.
When you say attacking with the same tools, so measures taken by police, mapping and preventative deployment, speed bumps, increased penalties, arresting spectators, impounding vehicles, seizing guns, fines, and tickets. You do all that stuff. Why isn't it working?
Well, I think you're just not really getting to the motivations of the people that are out there. You're not really appealing to what are you really saying to somebody who you're in the between of them and what could potentially be the most exciting time of their life. Now, again, this isn't taking into consideration residents and people who are on the streets. We're just talking about the mindset of folks who are out there and at that age range. I don't know if you remember what you were doing when you were that age, but when I was that age, I was out there. All this footage that you see, I was right there recording this stuff. And at that time, I was surrounded by a whole community of people that I did love and I did trust as just as close as family. So this is why we've taken a really, an approach of like, what are we doing to really solve for this instead of continuing to create these rifts? How are we creating a value system within this tribe instead of continuously knocking down folks for being their age and doing same things that have been done over and over and over again since graffiti, whatever it's called, American graffiti?
I understand the point. Like, how do you prevent 18-year-old boys from being 18-year-old boys? We've been trying to figure that problem out since time began. That said, right, this continues to get worse, right? And you can't have lawlessness. If all of these things that we've laid out here aren't going to solve the problem, what is?
Well, it's first going to be about directly engaging with the community that are out there. Believe it or not, you can talk to people. And this is something that I have not seen tried since our generation was out there. When we were out there, our city actually engaged with us. And we were kind of close to like doing something that would have been city sanctioned. Politics gets involved, personal things get involved. You know, I don't want to touch on to like what other people's motivations are. We're definitely at Sideways, we're definitely committed to like finding a solution that will work. The other thing to think about, there are people across this country who have started doing safe and sanctioned events, embracing sideshow culture. So it's not like there are not solutions that are already on the table that can directly affect what's happening in the streets. It's just in certain areas, they're new to this. So my recommendation to them would be, come holler at somebody in Oakland. We could give you 25 years of experience of what won't work to address this.
We live in a capitalistic society. Somebody's going to figure out how to make some money off of this. And hey, you're now becoming part of the solution. So thanks for joining us. We appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, for sure. This is great. We'll have you back. The U.S. national debt right now is rising faster than temperatures this summer, and nobody cares. One man in Texas says he will spend his own money, millions, to solve the problem. Why it might not even be possible when we come back.
And even here, in your neighborhood and around the world, Rotary is ensuring children grow up safe from preventable diseases.
Alcoholics always say they're going to get sober tomorrow. Politicians always say they're going to deal with the national debt after the next election. Of course, they never do, which is what Trump and Biden will both say tomorrow night. If they're even asked about it at some point, nobody even talks about it anymore. Republicans used to pay it lip service, not so much. In fact, Trump added $8.4 billion to the national debt. Biden, about half of that. So it's a problem for both. Joe Penland joins us. Businessman from Texas, if you can't tell by the hat. He's spending millions of his own dollars to try and get Americans to care about what our politicians won't. Welcome to the program. Thank you.
Thank you.
You think you got a shot at this?
I think so, absolutely. America's tired. You know, the government's grown too big, it's promised too much, subsidizes too many, and America's tired of it, and they've had enough. And somebody needs to bring it to their attention, and that's what Joe from Texas is doing.
Okay, JoeFromTexas.com is the website, which I think is hilarious, because when you look at the website, it looks like you're running for office, but you're not.
Absolutely not. Ross Perot did that in the 90s. He was a fellow Texan. The difference between Ross Perot and me is billions of dollars, and I don't want to be president of the United States, but I'm sick and tired of the 338 million Americans taking it on the chin.
Okay, so 338 million Americans are taking it on the chin. That would require either presidential candidate to care about something other than the culture wars and deal with something serious. It would also require the media to deal with something serious. How are you going to change that?
Well, we had good meetings today, one with the Speaker and one with Tom Emmert and a bunch of other congressmen. And they're really more on the page than what America thinks they are. We get this election behind us, I think things are going to change for America. They have to. we'll be $36 trillion in debt when this president finishes this first term. We had $4 trillion when Ross Perot was going to run. And you just do the math. That's 9 times. America can't take any more.
It's funny. The last meaningful exchange about the national debt in a presidential election was 1992. And you're right. I was in the audience. I was 10 years old. And I was sitting there, and I remember the question to George H.W. Bush, who glossed over it and completely flubbed. And then Bill Clinton started talking about the economy. And since then, no politician's ever done anything about this. We put that graphic up. Trump, $8.4 trillion. Biden, $4.3 trillion. Republicans always talk about tax cuts, and then if there is any money left over, Democrats go spend it on, as you said, entitlement programs. Donald Trump has specifically said, I will not touch Social Security and Medicare. You cannot fix the problem you're talking about without that.
Well, you have to fix Social Security. I know people don't want to touch that. That's supposed to be the rail that puts everybody away. But you got 68 million Americans on Social Security today. How do you leave them out in the cold? That's un-American, and guess what? It's a large voting bloc. I'd be paying more attention to them if I was running for president.
Right, but neither candidate is, and nobody wants to hear about their benefits being cut. They just want to be promised things, right?
Well, the benefits will be cut in 9 years. The Peterson Foundation has already put out their information. The Social Security will be insolvent in 9 years. We have to do something about that. It's going to be done, but what we've got to do is get past this election where nobody has to worry about the re-election.
So in other words, what you're thinking is there's going to be a lame duck president either way, and then one of these guys might actually do the right thing.
I think one of them is capable of doing the right thing. I question whether the other one is.
All right. Do you care to say which one?
Well, I think Donald Trump's still plenty sharp. Okay. And I think he's got the backbone to do it.
Right, but when given the opportunity, he cut taxes, did absolutely nothing to touch Social Security or Medicare, or deal with spending when he was president. He added more to the debt than anybody else.
Well, he did add some money to the debt. There's no two ways about it. But if you want to go back to when we talked about Ross Perot and Bill Clinton got elected, they balanced the budget 4 times because Newt Gingrich was there, and they made a contract with the American people, and they stood by it. And that's where this contract's out there. I want millions of people to sign on this contract so I can talk to one of the president candidates, hopefully Donald Trump, and say, hey, if you want to get elected, here's 7 million people that say they'll vote for you, and you better pay attention to that 68 million. I can't tell the president what to do, but I'd pay attention.
Hey, a man who's willing to put his money where his mouth is. Thank you.
God bless.
We need more people like you who care about America.
I'll leave this with you.
Thank you, sir. Good to see you. Well, 24 hours away. Tomorrow night, 1 hour away after the show. Here's Chris.